is willing. My name is Mike Harmer, Chair of Planning and Zoning Commission, and we're going to convene the meeting, and opening ceremonies will be, let's do a Pledge of Allegiance. All right. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Roll call. Jimmy O'Connor, you're here, right? All right. Mike Harmer here. Jim Lyons here.
Dale Cook here.
Jim Balicki.
And Mark Norquist had an option. I knew I was going to have a quorum, so he had something else and a good excuse. So anyway, I hope he's enjoying. We'll catch him later. Yes. Anyway, I think for approval of the minutes, we got the quorum. I'd have to abstain. I wasn't at the last meeting. So we're going to be, we're all, who were here on the minutes?
I was not here.
You were not here.
So I got the fire chief to yell.
3. We can wait till the next one if we're cool with that. Yes, I think that's probably proper way to do it, right? Yeah. Okay.
How many members do we have?
We have 3.
Total.
There were 4 at the last meeting then. So
How many are total?
total 7.
Okay, great. All right.
Yeah. All right. And for the record, it was Fred Townsend's here, our attorney, and Bill Zolfer, town manager. Let me actually make sure I check this off here because I'm going to take notes because I got to do the minutes. So it's me. It's all except for X and X. And Marty's not here also. All right. So we will defer minutes, which are written from the last meeting till the next meeting, just to be official. We could probably get away with it. Let's just move on. All right. So we'd like to adopt the agenda. So the agenda that was posted is here, and I'd like a motion to adopt the agenda.
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda.
All right, Jim Balicki. All right, Jimmy O'Connor. Motion. Second. All in favor, aye? Aye. All right. Unanimous. Adopted agenda. All right, we're sort of disadvantaged. Our secretary's not here. So anyway.
Mr. Chair, can you do me a favor?
Yes, sir.
Since I'm new again to this process, would you give me have the town attorney or someone explain the process that we're going to follow?
Oh, yeah. We're going to get into that here right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to discuss the amendment we're going to discuss the claw application for the restaurant amongst us, the commissioners, and then we're going to basically open it up for the applicant to present and the public to comment. That's a public hearing. We'll open up the public hearing, then we'll close the public hearing, and then we'll go have commissioner discussions. And there's a posted ordinance that we're probably going to add to because we want to add conditions or take away conditions, right? And then if the ordinance meets the approval of the Planning and Zoning Board, then that will go, Fred will touch it up and we'll doctor it up according to the meetings and minutes or meeting proceedings. And we'll send that, if it's a recommendation, to the town commissioners for a vote for approval and or whatever actions need to be done. And Fred, can you add any to that?
I would just say that, just remind the commissioners that you're sitting today to hear a conditional use permit application, which is required of any restaurant that operates in Dewey Beach. Also required of restaurants is a certificate of compliance. Those are issued or denied by council. So the referral from council is to consider the ordinance that's before you, to hear from the public and as well as the applicant, of course, and from staff today in order to make that recommendation. The recommendation will go up. We'll have probably some procedural things to discuss during the course of the meeting today, given the posture that we're in. Does that answer your question?
I have the elephant in the room for me. This is Dale Cook, by the way. I guess we're supposed to say who we are into the mic.
Yeah, I'm getting to that, right?
Elephant in the room for me is parking.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get to that, Dale.
So, yeah, but I'm just asking a question. Now is not the time to discuss parking. correct?
Well, no, what we're going to do is we're going to say that if we can agree to a recommendation for approval, that our recommendation is going to be that there's a resolution of the parking issue.
So this group, my advice to this group is that we cannot resolve the parking issue. The commissioners have identified the parking issue and referred the matter to you. The commissioners will, I believe, take the same stance. So once this proceeding is finished, the most that can be done is to refer this matter to the commissioners contingent upon a resolution of the parking issue. So the commissioners could have elected not to refer the matter down given the parking issue, but in order to keep, in order to be friendly to our applicants and to keep things moving and to lose as little time as possible, it has been referred to you with that issue flagged or identified as requiring appropriate attention from the appropriate body.
So after the meeting, I'll, at some point, hopefully this week, I'll be reaching out to you guys on planning and zoning to make sure you're not scheduling any fun time in Florida or wherever, which I've got to date myself. So we got to figure it out, and so we can get back here quickly and not lose any time. So anyway, we're going to discuss amongst the planning and zoning commissioners the draft ordinance for approval of the conditional use application for the restaurant to be named Claw, located at 18, I think it's 18 Coastal Highway. And we will, I'll just start it off by saying that we posted a very draft ordinance, and Fred will kind of take notes along the way. My game plan here is to look at a previous approval that planning and zoning did with conditions to try to be consistent. And we'll go through some of those conditions from the past. And of course, we can add more as we go along here. But and then Fred, I sort of sent you guys the ordinance I'm going to go by. And what I'll do is, if you guys are okay with it, I'll lead the discussion as far as going down that list, just to get it started, so that Fred will easily be able to check off which ones we say apply and don't, or one on there, and then add whatever else you want to add. But we'll do that after the public hearing. Like, basically, I think we'll just, should we do it? Is it okay to do it after, Fred, to add the conditions? That's what we usually do, isn't it?
Well, when it comes to considering additional conditions from the ones that are on the posted agenda, I think it would be appropriate for the applicant, during the course of the applicant's presentation, to have a chance to comment on it, because otherwise then the public doesn't have a chance to comment on it either, and the applicant doesn't have a chance to comment on it, and therefore you're not getting their input. So I think that whatever other conditions you want this group to consider, I think in order to have an effective public hearing, we're going to need to give Mr. Mandalis an opportunity to speak to those.
All right, so that was Fred Townsend, our town attorney, and Mike Harmer again. So just a footnote that I did not mention, when you talk, just mention your name for the virtual audience, because even though we think they can tell who's talking, it's kind of hard. So I'm Mike Harmer again. Just say your name, and I'll try to butt in if you don't, and try to remember. And same thing for the crowd. When we get to public hearing, we'll just get up on the podium and speak into the microphone and mention your name and address. So we are going to discuss planning and zoning commissioners, this ordinance, and then go down the list. So if you guys are okay, I can start on this ordinance and just start going down the list. Does that work for y'all?
Which ordinance you referring to?
This is the one that was the draft one for that we were talking about. That was posted. I think it was posted on the website for our meeting date.
For today.
For today. That's correct. For today. It was posted for today.
All right.
So this ordinance talks about, the using the expanding the conditional use of a property located at 1818 Coastal Highway for the Claw restaurant that we mentioned before. And since it's a conditional use application, we have to make what the conditions are. And that's kind of what we'll list here. And then everybody can comment as the public hearing happens, if you like or don't like or whatever. And we also, I guess, right before I get started in that, let me just let Dave Lyons say how many, what we've seen is we've seen a lot in favor and none that are not in favor of this application. All the emails that everybody's been sending, I can acknowledge that we did receive them. At least Bill's had some, I got some, and all the commissioners have them. And he's been our tracker. So Dave, can you just run down the list real quick?
Sure, it's Dave Lyons. So we have approximately, we have 8 different responses that we received from members inside Dewey. All have been in favor. I don't know if I need to go through all the names or not, but Fred, should I read through all the names? Is it appropriate? I have them all summarized.
You could, if you have them summarized, just very quickly. I wouldn't read the
I won't read the
submission.
list.
Yes, thank
But,
you.
Notes from Jennifer Cogliano, Brett Ruggiero, comments from Glenn Mandalis, Dave Moskowitz, Bill Bond, Terry Natoli, Mary and David Ferry, Douglas and Aaron Yeaman. All of those were in favor of the ordinance as posted.
And in Dave Moskowitz's, he had said maybe no smoking on the outside deck area, which is sort of, I think, what's down at another deck at a different bar downtown, so, or a different restaurant in town. So we'll be talking about that. That was in his note. And with that being said, we will go ahead and start looking at these conditions that were in the public posting, and then I'll go down the list from the other approval that we did a few years ago.
And Mr. Harmer is Fred Townsend again. Could I just make a just a little background on why you have this before you?
Okay.
That we've referred to this as a application for a conditional use permit, but this is technically an application to amend an existing conditional use permit that had been issued previously to an entity called Hammerheads. So what you have before you is the existing set of conditions with 2 underlying conditions at 8 and 9. Those are requested to be approved by the applicant. The condition number 9 refers to the fact that the applicant has obtained and wants to incorporate a neighboring lot into the conditional use permit to make it part of the proposed restaurant. And number 8, of course, relates to parking. So these conditions are not necessarily tailored for the applicant. They're the existing conditions that apply. And if the applicant were not proposing to change the footprint or anything else significant from the way it currently operates, they would be permitted to do so, and it would simply adopt. They would they would just simply be subjected to the conditions 1 through 7 that exist in the existing permit.
All right, Mike Harmer again. Thank you, Fred. So as posted, the first condition, which will, what I'm suggesting that the Planning and Zoning Commission here today would recommend to our town commissioners, and that's for all of these right here, would be hours of operation shall not be earlier than 7 a.m. and no later than 1 a.m. When we did some previous ones in the past, we might have said 11, but we quickly realized that didn't really work perfectly for the business entities. So to be consistent, we're going to let it roll at 1 o'clock and see how that works. There shall be no loudspeakers or number 2 is there shall be no loudspeakers or amplifiers on the exterior of the building. The number 3, the requirements of Chapter 144 restaurants shall be complied with by the restaurant at all times. And number 4, a final floor and final site plan shall be submitted and complied with at all times. And 5 would be applicant shall apply and comply with a certificate of compliance as provided in Chapter 144 restaurants prior to commencement of operations. 6, applicant shall acquire all necessary licenses from the town of Dewey Beach and the state of Delaware. All state health and regulatory agency requirements and regulations, including the state fire marshal, shall be complied with by the licensee, and licensee shall operate at its own risk of violation and state regulation that is not incorporated into the approval. Number 7, there shall be, now that this might need a little bit further discussion, but there shall be trash receptacles placed at the premises by the proprietor in compliance with the Dewey Beach Code. And why don't I just add 8 and 9 and 10 and then one more 10 on here, and then we'll come back to 7 and maybe 10, and then I'll start the other list. if you guys are okay with that. So hold the thought on the trash receptacles. And then item 8 is I think we'll change what was posted. What was posted was a waiver of the 17 off-street parking spaces is granted. And what I'm going to insert is some words that Fred may have to weasel word, or revise or review. But basically, we would say that a resolution of the parking issues. What do you think, Fred?
Well, the applicant has applied for a waiver. I don't, at this point, I don't think we need to
Address it at all.
Well, I don't think we need to address. I mean, we'll talk about number 8 when we deliberate, and
Okay.
perhaps the applicant will speak to number 8 as well.
Okay.
But I don't think we need to agree on what that's going to say before we start the public hearing.
So we'll delete number 8. Won't let this up, but number 8 now will become what was not 9 will become 8, which is the conditional use will be extended to cover the entirety of the parcels that are currently known separately as TMP 334-20.18 149.00 and 334-20.18-150.00 once the two parcels are combined, and they may already be. And then 9 was the one that I was going to talk about that Mr. Muskowitz recommended, and I'll throw that in. And we'll see if anybody wants to talk about, if we want to talk about trash and smoking, and then we'll go down, then I'll start back on with this.
But I think before we talk, I think those particular, any other conditions aside from these, I think should be discussed with the applicant during the public hearing.
Yeah.
So let's convene I think we should convene the public hearing, and then you can address questions.
Oh, just say each one and then they can address it. Is that how you want to handle it?
During the course of the back and forth with the applicant that the commissioners will have.
Okay. So we won't, so at this point, any discussion among the planning and zoning commissioners about what I just said versus where we're headed?
If
Mr. Cook, Dale Cook?
Dale Cook, if any of the commissioners have an additional item to put online, is now the time to say it? Or?
I don't think so. I think the commissioner should be thinking about exploring the conditions that they'd like to see applied through the public hearing process with both the applicant and maybe any other members of the public who have particular concerns. And then when it comes time to making a motion, then this group can debate whether those conditions should be attached or not.
All right. So with that being said, we will, any other discussion? Jim, Dale, Dave, or Jimmy? None, I see none. Fred, you're good. Bill, let's close. As far as the commissioners, we're done talking, but I also want to give town manager and Jim Deeds an opportunity to talk. So Jim or Bill, do you have anything to say?
Mr. Bill Zoper, town manager. The only thing I would recognize, and this may not be the right time or place, is that there are some outside decks from here, and to comply with the current town code, decks have to be closed and cleared by 11 o'clock.
Yes.
PM.
Awesome. Okay. We'll make sure that happens. And Jim Deeds from Town Hall, would you like to say anything?
They meet the conditions and the qualifications for restaurants.
Yep. So Jim Deeds from the town just said, just make sure we comply with the restaurant code for RB2. All right. And with that being said, we'll close. I guess we already sort of closed the planning and zoning commissioners. And the agenda says that we will open the public hearing, but keep the discussion by the planning and zoning commissioners open for dialogue. So we're going to have a public hearing on the draft ordinance for recommendation of approval for the conditional use application for a restaurant to be named Claw, located at 1818 Coastal Highway, Dewey Beach, Delaware 19971. The applicant at this point will present the application. Is that where we'll start, Fred?
Sure.
All right,
Yes.
you're up, team.
Thank you very much, everybody. And let me, Chairman Harmer, members of the commission, Mr. Zolper, Mr. Deeds, Mr. Townsend, Kate working the magic in the back. Glenn Mandalis on behalf of Starboard Claw Land Company, LLC. Let me first say thank you so much for taking a beautiful Saturday out of your lives and being here, because I know this is a special meeting that was scheduled for us so we could get this part of the process in the works. So thank you very much for doing that. I'll try to be quick and not take up all of your Saturday. It is a beautiful day in Dewey Beach, and It's a way of life, and we're trying to do that right here, make it even that much more a way of life. So by now you're aware that Starboard Claw is the owner of 1818 Coastal Highway, where Hammerheads is located, and the property behind it at 26 Bellevue Street. And here's what we want to create. I want to kind of set the vibe for a moment. Kate, if you could play the video that we have. Thanks. So raise your hand if you'd rather be there than here right now, right? So that's what we're trying to create. The owners have this vision to create a restaurant to be known as Starboard Claw. It'd be yet another addition to the Starboard family of restaurants. And as you, I hope everybody here knows, this guy who's here today and is going to speak for a moment, Steve Montgomery, has a long history in this town. He does it right, and he wants to just add that next piece to the town and to his operations. So we're requesting an expansion of the existing conditional use on the Hammerheads parcel at parcel 149 on the corner of Coastal Highway and Bellevue. So it'll extend to the property behind, as Mr. Townsend said. So they'll have those two properties at some point. To the extent we're approved and through the process, those parcels will actually get combined into one parcel. As a general overview, the proposed use is appropriate, we think, for the property because it's largely surrounded by similar operations and restaurants, Bottle and Cork, Jimmy's Grill across the street, ice cream shops, restaurants on either side of this property. It's consistent with the comprehensive development plan. The plan specifically says that the RB2 district lines both sides of Coastal Highway on State Route 1. The purpose of this zoning district is to provide a middle level of commercial development intensity in a Main Street-like environment. So we think that the Starboard Claw vision perfectly fits with the comprehensive development plan's vision of how the Route 1 corridor is supposed to look through the town. It'll be a two-story restaurant. It'll have indoor and outdoor dining on both floors. The first floor will have about 1,900 square feet of patron area. Second floor will have about 1,800 square feet of patron area. So it'll be about 3,700 square feet total of dining patron area. 204 seats for customers and diners, 88 on the first floor, 116 on the second floor. But to be clear, we want this to be an upscale restaurant. We think that Dewey, there's so much opportunity for that kind of establishment here. So this is not going to be the traditional bar scene that we probably have enough of that now. in demonstrating that there's only 32 seats of those 204 are going to actually be bar top type seats. Everything else will be permanent seated dining seats. Kitchen will be located on the first floor. There's a fair amount of storage right above that. On the second, we talked briefly about trash receptacles, and I see that's in the draft ordinance. So we will be in compliance with all the trash requirements, and they'll be enclosed and screened. There's some planters at the front of the building. There's some renderings that Mr. Tice is going to go through in a moment. But first, I think that we do need to address former Mayor Cook's reminder that maybe the elephant in the room is parking. Right now, Dewey Beach has an off-street parking requirement for restaurants that have over 2,000 square feet of patron area. So, and obviously the plan that we've got before you today shows a few off-street parking spot spaces, but we don't comply in any way with the requirement of the code as it exists. Under some calculations, there'd be 17 off-street parking spaces. Another calculation shows 19. But what we've learned through this process, and it kind of bore itself out in the public hearing we had when we went through the rezoning period of this whole situation, we learned that really we think we can create probably a better experience for people going to the restaurant and probably a safer experience for this intersection if we obtain relief from the off-street parking requirements. So yesterday, we submitted to town council a request for a code amendment that would allow this project to go forward, but not only this project, it would also revise the off-street parking requirements in the RB2 zoning district. So along the Route 1 RB2 corridor, it would be a code amendment to basically a code amendment that mimics Rehoboth Beach's requirements. We looked to the north and we looked to the south. So we looked at Lewis, we looked at Rehoboth Beach, and we looked at Bethany Beach. If this proposal were submitted to any of those jurisdictions today, the off-street parking requirement there would be 0. So it kind of demonstrates, I think, why probably those jurisdictions to the north and the south have maybe outpaced Dewey Beach with the upscale restaurant scenes. We're trying to, do it now. And I think a code amendment, and this again is not for this body to discuss today, but that's the way we're approaching it. So what I would like is for the Planning Commission today to consider our proposal as if we have relief from that off-street parking requirement. Obviously, whatever you send to town council is going to have to say this project can't be approved without either a code amendment or a variance from the Board of Adjustment. So, and we realize that, and but we'd like you to look at our plans as they are today, assuming that we get some sort of relief from the parking requirement. If we don't get that relief, we can't be approved, and we understand that. We do agree to the conditions that are in the draft ordinance. I know we're going to talk through many other conditions, but the ones that are in the current draft ordinance that has been posted, we agree to every condition that's currently in that ordinance. Mr. Tice, would you like to take a moment and talk through the renderings? Thanks.
I'll just give a 30-second overview. So I'm Tim Tice. I am working out of Bethany Beach and Rehoboth Beach, and then representing the applicant. So we've got a few exterior renderings that I think we're going to put up here in a second. My goal was to execute on what Monty's vision was, and I think we've done that. We've taken an existing building that, is fine. It's got a great location, but it needed a little updating. And so, as we get this up here, I worked with Matt Adler, one of our interior guys, and we've come up with what I think is a pretty attractive interior, dedicated seating, an attractive bar, good flow. It works well for the structure we have. In order to have a restaurant function well, we needed a good sized kitchen. The back side of this is kind of all kitchen space. The footprint of the actual restaurant is not a whole lot different, but the actual dining space is not a whole lot different than what's currently there. And like I said, we have a small bar on the first floor, small bar on the second floor. And then do you mind jumping to the next one? This is just kind of a visual of if you were to cut the top of the building off and kind of look down and just kind of let you see everything a little better. And then another kind of aerial view, just kind of getting a good perspective of that corner roof deck as well. Another benefit of that is it relieves some of the mass off of that corner, which is, just from a designer's perspective, just helps kind of provide a little additional depth. And then I think you've got one more. Maybe not. Oh, maybe not. Okay, so that is so that's what we're going for. We're also pretty heavy on planning, so that's another thing that helps kind of soften the exterior, adds quite a bit of just visual interest to the exterior as well. So, okay.
Mr. Tice, you're with whom?
So I think in this case, I am with.
My primary is with Shaw Brothers, and so I work directly with Chris Shaw.
Very good.
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
And we've gone through a few hearings and we haven't actually heard from Monty. So I thought maybe Monty, you'd want to say a couple words about what your vision is and where you see this going.
Steve Montgomery, Starboard. I feel like we've had this hearing 3 times already with the zoning hearings, which was supposed to be about zoning and always ended up being about the restaurant and what was coming. So here we are today. We can finally talk about the restaurant. And I don't want to repeat. I think by now, most people know what we're intending, what we're asking, what we're hoping to do. The only change is I think we were really pushing and appreciate all the help and trying to push for timing, but it's unlikely we're going to get this thing built by Memorial Day 2022 at this point. I mean, not only building, but COVID supply issues and things like that. We don't know what we'll run into, but we are in this for the long term. We're in it to win it. We want to do this right. We don't only do it one time. I know that a lot of the conditions and conditional use things are about making sure this thing is a restaurant, not a bar. We've already got the greatest bar on Dewey Beach in the Starboard, so we don't want to compete against that place. Had to get that plug in. But I will tell you, 7 years ago, when we opened Starboard Raw, and I'm already confusing Raw Claw, got my own, self-conflicted on what I'm talking about. But I, honest to God, thought Starboard Raw was going to be the place that when the K-Pastas of the world were closed at 10 or 11 o'clock, and the elderly crowd wanted to go have one more, they'd go to a place like Starboard Raw. It's not that at all. Starboard Raw is a restaurant. And at 11 o'clock, every kid and every adult in there, they're heading either to a show at the Cork or to the Starboard or wherever. Like it's cleared out at 11. We feel that Starboard Claw will be a very similar situation. We would love them to sit and watch the end of a game. And that was one of the things at Dewey Beer Company when that restriction went on that I went to then Mayor Diane Hansen and said, it's tough to watch the Super Bowl at our one brew pub in town because you have to leave in the third quarter. And I meant that facetiously, but she got it. Like it wasn't a bar. It was a sit down, eat a burger, have a cold beer and watch a game. Same thing that this is going to be. And we have a crab place in Baltimore, a very high volume place over there. So we know crabs. We know Ed Riggin from Ed's Crabs really well, and everyone seems to love when I've said that we're going to bring Ed in and do Ed's Chicken at this restaurant. Just trying to gather a concept, the success of a restaurant as a concept. This is a crab house. We're going to have Ed's Chicken. Ed's begged me at 86 years old if he can come work a couple nights. Said, Ed, we want you out there shaking hands and kissing babies because everyone in this town still loves Ed, and he's still doing great today. But it's also a seafood restaurant. It's also, plenty of other foods. It's not, I say that because it's Starboard Raw. So many people tell me they don't like raw oysters, so they don't come there. I'm like, we have plenty of other great things. You've talked about the elephant in the room. We all have. Just so you all know, day one, by the way, our partner in this is Chris Shell. He would be here today, but he's out of town. But Chris's involvement is not that he wants to be steaming crabs or taking on any more in his world, but he loves Dewey Beach. He's built a beautiful home at the end of Dewey Beach, and he is willing and able to help make this town better in any which way he can. And he wanted to see us. He likes what we do. He likes how we operate. We're all good friends. And he said we could take when this became available, he wanted to make sure this place became something special. He goes, I'll get involved in this if we can do it first class. I want to spend the right amount of money to do it right because I've failed when I don't spend the right money to make it right. I've never failed when I've made sure we did it right from day one. I say that to emphasize we're going to do it right. We're going to make sure this place is beautiful, solid, and around for the next 30 years. The other reason getting into this is not so much that I really wanted more on my plate to do, but we believe that we're getting to be the older generation. And we've got guys like Keith Kirk, AKA Toasty here, who started working at the Starboard at the age of 14, buttering toast. and since then has been stuck with the nickname Toasty. But Toasty and another guy of ours from Bethany Blues, we're going to elevate them into the full ownership roles with us in this business so that this can be their baby and they can spend the next 25 years with us, helping us with our existing restaurants, but also helping run this day to day. And we can hopefully be a little bit more in the mentor role and help them get a start and be in a career of the restaurants. That's the parking in this. Day one, when this was starting to, the rumors were flying out and we hadn't settled yet. I know a little bit how Dewey Beach works and everything is about the neighbors. We thought it right. We were kind of in a quagmire. Do we talk about this publicly or do we wait till we settle and do this? You know, what's the right thing to do strategy to get this done while we all still want to move the approval process along? Well, we met with the neighbors on the block of Bellevue, Ocean Block of Bellevue, and we've had an open dialogue with many of them every week since to make sure we're addressing all their concerns. I can promise you most all of them are very supportive of the restaurant. Of course, they, trash, noise, the normal restaurant things they've all asked about. We've assured them we understand that, we do that, and we're more than willing to address and work and fix and change, adapt to any of that. The parking is the one issue that's come back and back and back. Not only are we trying to figure out with the size of this restaurant, with the kitchen and things we want to do, we would not be able to fit 17 or 19 parking spaces, but the homeowners are adamant how dangerous. And now the town managers looked at it with them and been very helpful, putting some speed bumps on that street, that they don't want more traffic on that street, vehicular traffic. We at the starboard, the current starboard, we've taken the side, we put bike parking, scooter parking, and it's really, really worked well. Got pictures showing how many bicycles. It's ridiculous how many people are on bicycles in today's world, which is great. That's what Dewey Beach is. It's a walking town. It's 2 blocks wide. There isn't any more real estate in Dewey. We all know how expensive real estate is in Dewey today. So we're not economically able to go purchase the lot behind us, the lot across the street from us, or anywhere else to add more parking. And Dewey wouldn't mind selling more parking permits also. So that's kind of a win-win. But most of it is for a safety reason, so that the side of that building, if you have seen or ever look, I put out, or Toasty put out on Monday, some of our starboard barricades around the side of Hammerheads with some planters around there, only to give kind of a peaceful feeling of what that could be when you get rid of those 3 or 4 spots. Technically, they're town spots, but they're realistically a complete nuisance, because every pickup truck is parked there, blocking the intersection. There's so many kids at the ice cream store, including my own next door. There's always a car of parents waiting on the street for their kids to come out of the ice cream store. And it's a real mess right there. So we've kind of taken a different approach and trying to say, let's get done what we can do with the restaurant, but let's work on this parking with the town, because times are changing. COVID has changed. The starboard, you've seen what we've done. We do not intend to expand into the parking area at Starboard Claw. We don't need the space. We don't want the space. That was something that works well for the starboard and will remain at the starboard. We do think that the town is going to look at it and should look at it for everybody, not just for us, on the future of Dewey and the ability to bring more nicer restaurants. I laugh when he talks about a high end. I mean, it's still a crab house, but it's a Pottery Barn crab house. I mean, a nicer looking crab house. We don't want to not be Dewey Beach. We don't want white tablecloths. There'll still be white paper on the tables and things like that. But this is something this town drastically needs. I think we all feel the loss of Ed's Chicken when we lost that business, and just, it's a beach town, a very popular, well-known beach town that doesn't have a crab house. Apparently we have a good crab cake in town, I'm told, but don't have a crab house. So that's kind of where we are. I would agree with some people talked to you. I think we are lucky that we're willing, able, and wanting to do this and to have Chris Shell's involvement. The town should be lucky that we're going to attempt to make this wonderful. So that's kind of our spiel.
All right, thank you.
So the guy in the coat calls it upscale and gets checked up. So I think maybe at Mr. Townsend's direction, we should probably go through the additional conditions now so we can get them on the table, and
All right.
the public will have an opportunity to hear them then.
With you guys is okay, I'll just start going through them and we'll see how this goes. So I did email each planning and zoning commissioner the list that we use in ordinance 732 way back in the day when Dewey Beer Company was coming. And I think Jim, you might have been on the planning and zoning with me back then, maybe. Yeah. So anyway, there's a list, and I need to pull it out here. Of course, I had it here a minute ago now. Okay, here it is. So we were on number 9. That was number 8. Number 9 and what was posted is now number 8. So number 9 will be, let's talk about smoking. So here's the words I wrote. No smoking shall be permitted on the upper outside decks and period. So I can just leave it at that and see what you guys think. Now there's another thought there. Go ahead. So it's Mike Harmon. So there's another thought to that. Is there any room for a smoking area downstairs so you're not out on the street smoking? Because I don't know, you guys just tell us about your smoking plan.
I'm not a smoker, so I'm
On the thing.
pretty accepting to non-smoking requests.
Okay, so we just won't have smoking on the deck. We know that. So those words will stand. All right, go ahead.
You know, my only concern is where do smokers go? It's honestly not a big issue like it was 15, 20 years ago. We all didn't know what was going to happen when you took smoking out of restaurants, whatever year that was. It's not at the Starboard, for instance, you don't see anybody smoking until about 11:30 at night. Then it's more of a bar than people are outside on the outside decks, the one that we call the smoker's deck, literally. And that's where they go to smoke. And at a place like this, smoking is not going to be an issue in my opinion.
All right. So that would be a condition. We'll just say no smoking shall be permitted on the upper outside decks. Is that?
Well, you don't have to declare that now. That would be part of the motion. But right now you're asking the applicant about certain conditions that this group may want to impose.
It's Mike Staley. So just a question. So there's a downstairs deck, right? Is there a downstairs deck? Do I recall it right?
There is downstairs outdoor
There's
seating.
downstairs outside. So I just wondered, what were you thinking about applying that there too?
What do you think? Should we just say there's no smoking permitted on the outside decks? Or what do you think? I mean, because that's a screened room, it says. So,
Right.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, that's going to be our rule anyway. So.
it's going to be your role anyway. Okay.
Yeah, so I just wanted to get clarity.
On the, so smoking no smoking shall be permitted on the decks. There you go. And I'll take care of that. Then the next one would be, so Fred, you can sort of take notes. We'll go through these again if you want, but I don't see any other way. So when you're looking at the ordinance I emailed you guys 712 Dewey Beers, all right? And you go to page 2 and you see A1, condition A1. And I'm actually thinking, Fred, we've already covered those in the first few conditions, like 1, 2, and 1 and 2 are like primary use of the facility is number 1. Yeah, it talks about the primary use. I don't think we need to put that in there, right?
Yeah, I don't think you do either.
Yeah, and we don't need number 2. That says it'll be operated in a manner consistent with all written and agreed upon representations.
No, you don't.
All right, don't need that. All right. And then the third one, I don't think we go with seated dining because that's town hall to make sure that's all compliant. Back then we were a little more intrusive. We were in a little more details. It wasn't quite as
well. I think we heard a minute ago that the applicant was proposing how many seat?
204 seats.
Yeah, 240.
And that'll all be subject to the permanent compliance, and the seating plan will be on file with the town. We can't deviate from that without coming back anyways. So
that the 35 is a reference to what distinguishes a eatery from a restaurant. This is clearly not an eatery.
Exactly.
Right. So you don't need to
I'm
make.
not going to mention that. So 3 is not applicable. 4 is not applicable. So now we're on page 3. 5 is not applicable. I don't think 6 would be. 7, no. So number 8. Number 8 was all tables and chairs shall be maintained it doesn't say approximate in the old one, but I was going to say all tables and chairs shall be maintained in the approximate configuration shown in the approved conditional use application. We're sort of getting into, we don't want them to turn it into a bar. which we know they're not going to. So what that doesn't hurt. I mean,
We asked the applicant.
yeah,
Those tables will be screwed in the floor.
exactly. So there's
Okay.
nothing. Yeah. So we'll put that in there. Next one was, yeah. We're like, when we did this, it was a little different times, but number 9, occupancy shall not exceed the occupancy limits determined by the fire marshal's office if the bar area is separate. So that doesn't even make any sense. That's that second piece. So basically, we've already said that in this one. So let's just say number 9, Fred, will not apply. So disregard what I just said. Applicant. Here was one. Does it make sense? Kitchen facilities shall be under the direction of a chef or cook. You could tell we didn't trust anybody back then. It wasn't an applicant. That was a great applicant. It was just based, it's like we wanted to make sure it was going to be a restaurant, So that was why that was kind of probably dreamt up by us back in the day. So what do you think, Fred? We don't need that, right?
I don't,
That doesn't hurt you guys. You're going to have a chef or a cook back there, right? All right, we'll put that no-brainer in there. The no-brainer will be kitchen facilities shall be under the direction of a chef or cook.
That's number 11.
That's number 10 from the old one.
Down
Yeah.
there, but 11 in our list for this application, that'll be number
Probably,
11,
yeah.
but the 10.
Yeah. So Fred, that number 10 will stand.
well, you're going to have to vote on that.
Yeah.
So then you're going to have to hear from the public because the
Right.
public may have.
Right.
All right. So
Right.
let's not bother numbering them yet.
Well, just in case you're taking notes, because it's going to go quick when we're going. So I'm just trying to help you out here. So number 11, there shall be no change to the approved floor plan, including no erection of any temporary or permanent staging without town approval as a special event. Do we need that, you think? I mean,
I think your town code already requires a special
Yeah.
event application.
yeah, I think so too. So things, like I said, things have changed. So we won't even put that in there because we know that the code covers that.
Excuse me, Chairman,
Yeah, sir.
we don't want to assume we're not going to put it in there
Okay.
because people here
Okay,
on that
yeah.
side may want it in.
All right.
And that those types of things were put in originally, if I understand it correctly, in case other codes, whether it be state or county changed, we still had our town code that said we're requiring this.
Okay. So
those
you might
things-
want that on
Those
there.
things
Okay.
probably need to stay.
So applicant.
I would simply ask, I would use this time period to ask
Okay.
the applicant how they feel about these issues that may be incorporated into your motion.
All right. So what do you think about the words number 11 on that sheet? There shall be no change in the approved floor plan, including no erection of any temporary or permanent staging without town approvals as a special event.
Not an issue for us.
Not an issue. Okay, cool. All right.
It's apparent to me the applicant has this, okay, all right, let's go ahead.
All right.
You
And-
do.
Right here.
And
Okay,
I'm
it was just handed to you.
I had it. I got it
All right.
off this morning.
Thanks.
Just might
Thanks.
happen.
All right.
And the next one was number 12, was no service or consumption of alcoholic beverages shall be permitted in the entrance or the waiting area outside front there.
Is that an ABCC?
It's absolutely, I mean, the ABCC, we're gonna have to make an application there and they will license whatever area they think is appropriate.
Yeah.
So it's right.
Okay. All right.
Mike, I just want to, just in terms of what we go through here, including or not including, obviously, these applicants are very amenable, but setting the rules going forward, let's hope there's another restaurant, another area that wants to come in. So I think maintaining these things probably isn't necessarily a bad thing as long as there isn't any objection.
Yeah.
Just so we're consistent.
Right, that's what
we
yep.
just want to get to.
That's
It's just consistency in the precedent that we're setting here. So.
All right. Thank you, Dave. So on number 13 on that was no outdoor public address system amplifiers or speakers are permitted on the applicant's property.
That's in the current version of the ordinance, basically, because the current version says there shall be no loudspeakers or amplifiers
Yeah,
on the
you're
exterior of
right.
the building, and we're
Yep.
agreeable with that.
Yep. We don't need that. All right. All exterior windows and doors to the restaurant shall be closed at, it said 11 p.m.
That's a functional thing.
Could you read that one more time?
Yeah, Bill, so I'll read this. All exterior windows and doors to the restaurant shall be closed at 11 p.m.
That's a noise thing.
Yeah,
That's not an issue for us anymore.
okay.
It's not, I'm thinking, it's not Malo, the door, windows are all.
Yeah, yeah.
I know what they're thinking this was made for Dewey Beer Company. That's garage doors.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the place doesn't have
You know,
windows that are going to be issue like that.
Okay.
Are you, excuse me, Chair, is the applicant saying is not opposed to that or?
Yes, that's what I'm hearing. Not opposed to the condition where we would say all exterior windows and doors to the restaurant shall be closed at 11 PM. Just from a noise standpoint. That's what that's for. Number 15 on the old one was all interior speakers in the restaurant portion of the building shall be directed towards the interior space and away from any exterior door, window, or wall. So that was just another noise thing.
Yeah, we're gonna point them towards Woody's. So.
You won't, that's good. You won't need to provide.
Yeah, so it was oddball, but that was, it shouldn't be a problem. I mean, you'll probably just turn them.
I don't, but the ball and cork and Jimmy's Grill across the street.
Exactly.
Yeah, right, exactly. I don't think it makes any difference. All right, so the applicant, let's see, the applicant during periods of normal operations shall remove any and all litter accumulating in the public space, including street, storm sewer intakes, bordering the property along Coastal Highway and Bellevue, each day before, and we had like 8 a.m., but I don't know if we wake up that early, 10 a.m., but we can determine what time, but we're going to put a condition that sometime in the morning, we want you to make sure the place is cleaned up, you know. And I'm
That's the deal breaker when I'm in the trash.
yeah, yeah.
I don't.
You do that as probably standard procedure, but we just want to, that's all that was in there just to make sure. And it's working well, as you can tell. Town's looking pretty good. So very good. Excellent. There, Bill. All right. So the applicant shall not engage in any, this is weird, is a long one. Receive consumer alcohol beverages excessive. All right. I think this is ABC thing, but
That's an
Yeah.
yeah.
It's already an ABC. You can leave it in there. It's already ABC.
Okay, so if you guys want to put it in, we'll put it in there. We'll get to that. All right, now we're on B. We're on page 4, and I'm on B. The B ones, and this is more about the RB2 and protecting the residences from additional stuff for noise, odor, congestion, and nuisances. So number 18, this is B18, was the hours of operation, which were already addressed. All right, because that other one said 1 a.m. And then the second one was about the speakers. So we already addressed that too, Fred. So I don't think we need that there because it's already on there. And then number 20, I didn't think applied, that there's no outside, but maybe so what it was there shall be no outside service areas, but that's all changed based on COVID. It is an old, it's what it said was there shall be no outside service areas except for approval under a special event permit or subsequent conditional use approval. But in the town allowing outside service or
What about the deck though?
Yeah, the deck.
yeah, it's already
That's
because that Dewey Beer didn't have a deck at the time, so let's just scratch that. We want because that doesn't even apply. And the 21, had a question mark next to this one. The applicant shall provide a minimum of one appropriately lined and signed off. No, that's parking set, doesn't apply here. 22. You've already shown a fence along the back edge. So I'll just read it. And I think I've seen in your video, you had like a fence along the back.
Yeah, we're providing fence and landscaping actually this week.
Yeah, so Fred, right. So I don't think we need 22.
That should be in there.
It should, okay. So let me read it.
Because that's protection for noise but we're asking the applicant now, not us, I guess. But I just don't want you to take it out.
Okay, all right. So let me read it.
And I also want to remind you that we're going to need to focus also on the submission here that we have before us, the plans.
Mhm.
So whatever approval is granted is going to be contingent upon them building consistent with these plans. So some of these topics like fence, I
It's
assume
not shown, Fred. The fence not shown.
there's no fence shown on the plan.
Not on this plan we have in front of us. I know their civil plan shows it somewhere,
Okay.
but
It's
not.
shown on the rendering. It's not shown
It's-
on
yeah,
the site
right.
plan.
So there's going to be a fence. So anyway, I'll read this because we'll just, just give you the opportunity to put it in if you want. I just want to make sure, Monty, and it doesn't mess you guys up, or you just want your opinion on it. The applicant shall erect, unless there is an existing fence in this location, and maintain a fence along on that one, it was on the east edge, which would be same thing for your property. East edge, right? Yeah. East edge of the property to buffer impacts on abutting, I don't know if it's RR, but on
Yeah.
abutting, I'll say residential properties. That's the way we'll read it. On abutting residential properties.
Okay, stop there.
Okay, right, gotcha,
Right? Because the rest of this doesn't apply.
gotcha, okay.
So I mean, so this is establishing a requirement. This condition would be establishing a fencing requirement. You all are going to need to discuss that and perhaps ask the applicant to comment on what they may be considering for fencing around the property.
All right, let's hear it. What kind of fencing you guys got?
What are you planning with the vegetative?
I mean, here's our thing, fencing, just, yeah. A trash truck has to get in and out of there.
Mhm.
So we were worried about what fencing to put so that the trash truck doesn't care about what he smashes.
Mhm.
That's comes under parking. If we were able to get away from some of the parking, we would have forced to be back there. The trash truck has more room. We had more leeway to put a nicer fence and back there so that the trash truck can get in and out of there at 7 a.m. instead. It's gonna be a wooden, whatever fence we have to decide what kind of fence.
Yeah, so we're not asking to type of fence. We're just saying the applicant shall erect unless there is an existing fence in this location, which was not.
There is not an
And
existing fence.
maintain a fence along the east edge of the property to buffer impacts.
There will be a fence and
Yeah.
there'll be shrubbery that we're putting on the outside.
Okay,
Trees on the backside of the fence.
perfect. And that's what the rendering showed. Yeah, well, okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
just Dale Cook, just so everyone knows, we required, the town and planning and zoning required grottos, the beer company, Nalu's and others of fencing and buffers, noise buffers along.
Mhm.
And although the town hasn't kept up with inspections of that, but we required it. And so that for these people, we should require the exact same thing, I would think.
That's exactly what this
Okay.
this is. And it says tiered, it says, I'll just say, we won't use tiered, we'll just say planting. The next one, 23 has
Fences
plantings.
and planting.
Yeah, plantings, and that's what the video showed. It showed plantings and a fence. So I think we're getting it, but it'll be in, if you guys decide you want this condition, it'll be in there. But so Monty, the next one is plantings shall be installed and maintained along the east boundary of the property. And I'll just say that along eastbound of the property. To protect, in order to protect neighboring properties' privacy and protect said properties from light and noise resulting from the applicant's operations. And we won't specify that like we did there. The old one said the planted buffering area shall be a minimum of 2 feet, 6 inches wide, blah, 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 but we knew it had the room at the time. So here, we'll just say he has to have plantings and the design will specify it. If you guys want the additional words read like this. This planted buffered area shall be a minimum of 2 feet, 6 inches wide. Such tiered planting shall include ground level plants and or ground cover, mid-height shrubberies, and a tree canopy. Planting plans shall be approved by the town code enforcement officer. So I think my suggestion would be to leave all that rest of that wording out, other than the planting plan shall be approved by the town.
Well, let's see what the applicant
Okay,
has in mind.
Does that work?
Well,
Plantings. So basically your video showed plantings and a fence.
so the video is just informational. It's not going to be part of our approval. It's
Okay.
this site plan and what ends up in this ordinance.
Okay.
So if you want to hear about what the applicant has in mind for plantings, you're going to have to ask the applicant.
Yeah. So what, can you explain that? Is that's site plan? I don't think that's the same one we have here. That's not the same one.
It is one of them.
It is one of them, but it's not this one. Yeah.
Sure.
Jim Deeds
Yeah.
might know a little bit about the plantings. Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, do you mind going to the
That plantings are required, and what the minimum requirement is a 10% of State Route 1, which is coastal highway, front side yard setback dedicated to planting and beautifications area, planters, and that includes planters as part of the requirement. So they have to meet that standard.
That's what I figured. Yeah. So I think, what we're asking you, Monty, is the condition would be something like planting shall be installed and maintained along the east boundary of the property. To protect the neighboring properties' privacy and protect said properties from light and noise resulting from the applicant's operations. And the planting plan, needs to be approved by the town code official because they're going to be looking at it from a code standpoint. So
Yeah, we're working with the neighbors that live out there to make sure
Okay.
they get what they want.
okay,
And we'll provide it when if chosen, they're actually talking to the landscapers to get planted what they would like planted there. Keeps them happy and access all the above.
All right. Yeah. So one of those sentences, Dale, would be deleted because I'm not certain, that might have been the code for back then. I mean, Jim just read the code for today, and now, of course, the plans will have to comply with that. So there'll be plantings. I'm not going to recommend that we would specify the width and height of.
Well, right now, Mr. Chair, right now, we're just discussing what the applicant would be willing to agree to that's already written
Right.
down.
Right.
So if I'm suggesting that you read what's written down, and does the applicant agree to it, or does the applicant not agree to it?
Okay. Thank you. Number 24 would be all kitchen and brew pub exhaust outlets shall be located a minimum of 30 feet from any residential property unless such positioning conflicts with fire and health department requirements. I'm not sure where the 30 feet came from.
Is that a code requirement? It's not.
No.
That might came up because of the brewing the beer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
So maybe we should leave that out because that's, those guys will be reviewing from the mechanical code. But so
Does the
that,
applicant agree or
Yeah.
disagree?
yeah. What do you think of that?
I honestly don't know how far our hoods are gonna be. Any idea from neighboring property? I mean, neighboring could be wings to go. We're very close to the direction on
Mhm.
it. To be honest with you.
Yeah.
So it's
30
Right.
feet, only 30 feet. So it's the exhaust fan.
You got I think we're probably good.
Again, that was a requirement for brewery.
Yeah.
For exhaust coming out. Early hops. and whatever.
But I do, this stabilizes, I mean, there may be an issue here with the neighbors, right? I mean, just.
Wait a minute, hold on 1 second. I can't hear what he's saying.
So I guess the only question I have with whatever the distance is for the exhaust, for the hood, do we have a concern? Is there a concern for the neighbors? That's all. I mean, even if it's
Another
not.
number looked at, there's 20 feet behind from the building to property, just for the trash outlets and that, and the neighbors at a 10-foot setback. So we're there.
So how do we interpret that? How do we measure those feet? Are they from an existing residence or are they to a property line?
It says any residential property line, any residential property, unless such positioning conflicts with fire and health department requirements.
Right. And we think we have 20 feet to the property line, but then an additional 10-foot setback from the resident. So we'd have 30 feet from the actual residential structure, but I think we only have 20 feet to the property line.
So just to be clear, I think maybe what we're gonna do is we're gonna specify the residence structure as opposed to the property line.
That's how it's written in this.
Right.
Doesn't say property line, it's written structure.
All right. Number 25 was the applicant shall provide and maintain lighting in the parking area during normal hours of operations. Such lighting shall be designed and maintained so as not to unreasonably impact the residential neighbors per town code. I won't cite the town code because we haven't certified that those are the sections.
No objection.
All right, perfect. And then 26 was entrances to any and all commercial use spaces. Said on the north and east, so I'd say. So entrances to any and all commercial spaces to the building shall be kept closed at all times except for emergencies and such use approved by consent of the adjoining property owner. So it's just entrances.
That's a joint beer.
Yeah, that's because that neighbor in the back. So that doesn't even apply.
I do have a question there, Monty. The driveway, assume that's gonna be open or is that to be closed? I'm just looking at the site plan.
Driveway open. will be open.
Yeah, it says gravel drive. If I'm looking, I think that's it, right? Gravel drive off Bellevue. Yeah, behind it. Okay.
Yeah.
And is that where you expect the trash to be on that side?
In the back, yes, there, but the trash we plan to have closed.
Okay.
Okay, all right. Number 27, all exterior mechanical equipment visible from public streets and adjacent residential use properties or any residential zoning district shall be appropriately screened so as to not create a nuisance. Any such screening plan shall be approved by the town prior to install. So basically, your mechanical stuff up on your roof needs to be screened.
It's fine.
All right.
But just to clarify, you do have, I think on the site plan, is there external freezer and a shed on
That's
the
old. This is old. That's not
There's- I mean, it's there, but it's not.
There's currently one there. There's also the neighbor's shed freezer that's actually on our property. So
Okay.
we've told them we have no problem with that.
Okay. There's no issue with screening whatever properties, whatever. Okay, great.
All right, now, and then C was all about a brew pub, so I don't really, I don't think, Fred, that we go into that. I mean, when I read them, the only one I could even, I just have X's on all of them. I mean, so, the only one that might apply is item 30. And it says, it's item 30 was meals shall be considered, because we were real paranoid about the bar thing, but it's just not applicable. Yeah.
You don't,
Yeah.
that is right.
So, I'm not going to go through the item C, and that'd be 28 through 39, because that was all, specified because of the brew pub issue. And that's the way that the ordinance read. Planning and zoning commissioners, it said conditions for operation of a brew pub beyond those of a simple restaurant. That's what those were for. With that being said, it's Mike Harmer concluding. That is all the conditions that were originally there. And I don't know if I'm going to go around the room here to see if they want to hit you with any others that they might be thinking about. Jim, do you have any, Jim Balicki, you have any that you want to toss up there for thought?
No, the only question I had is it a regulation they have to have trash removed every day? They dump them. So I'm just looking, it looks like small amount of trash receptacles for a restaurant.
It's not a regulation. This is a crab house. We have a crab house.
That's what I'm looking at. I'm thinking, okay, it's not much.
Out of respect to neighbors and out of
Yeah.
functionality, because this is real big.
Yeah,
Trash we picked up 6 days a week, probably off season, 7 days a week in season.
yeah. Like I said, I was just curious because of the small sizes you see back there. Not a lot of receptacle dedicated.
You know, no one grabs any out to.
Hey, I wouldn't think so. I'm just curious. That's all I was thinking. I'm good otherwise.
Thank you, Jim Balicki. Dale Cook?
Yeah, I think we ought to have somewhere in there, even though it's an overstatement, meet all conditions set forth in the town code, which is what Jim read earlier. I think that's a catch-all that will, if we've missed something, that we won't miss it if that's in there. And I'm worried about noise abatement and lighting. I don't have a real problem with lighting, because I think the applicant has done a great job already with all the restaurants they have. But noise abatement worries me, fences and planting, et cetera. I think as we discussed, we should make sure that there's an emphasis on that. The applicant has already done that at every restaurant he's opened. And I think that we got to make sure this is not just for this applicant, this is what we do in the future also. And I had an arrow next to trash receptacles. I was worried about the amount of pickup, but it's going to be 6 days a week,
Yeah.
off season, 7 days.
You don't want a compactor that goes for a week like we have at other restaurants and just squeeze in the crab juice.
Right.
You want that out of there.
Right.
So you want
So-
the mixers to go.
So there would be no problem with us putting something in there about number of times for pickup.
No, we've already agreed to it with the neighbors, so.
All right, so
So what would you propose
Well.
if we were
it's-
going to?
It's a little difficult to put a proposal on it because you don't know what the trash companies are willing, able, and willing to do.
Right,
For
right.
instance, we'd be happy to do 7 days a week, but it's. a little bit of what the
But that's
business
scary.
has.
We don't want to enforce, you didn't get the trash out one day that now you're in violation. So is there some minimum number that you're pretty confident that you're going to be able to comply with?
Why don't we just say minimum, because there's a chance that like a lot of restaurants are not open Mondays and Tuesdays and whatnot, it's a minimum 5 days a week or something.
All right.
Because you know.
Is that too onerous?
I-
Is 5 days a week too onerous?
I don't know that that's something.
I think that's, yeah.
I don't know that's something you want to go for.
Yes.
Other business owners, is
Yeah.
we're doing this because we're a crab house.
Mhm.
Another restaurant might be like the Starboard does it once a week and it's fine. It's come back. So I don't know why you really need to worry about it for others, because it would be a case by case scenario. And what style place it is, you understand that.
So we've never really had a daily, any kind of trash pickup scheme, but I think Monty thinks he can get it done 5 days a week, but it might be a dangerous condition to put on there, but you can put whatever,
Might be a what?
a dangerous condition.
A
If
dangerous?
No, not
condition?
dangerous. Like I'm saying that if the trash company doesn't show up because of labor.
I
or-
think 5 days a week would be fine. The town's going to enforce it like they do with everybody else in a normal situation.
All right.
If there's a problem,
Then
then
make sure everybody down the road is doing the right thing.
5 days, okay. So you think you can agree to 5 days? All right. Minimum 5 days. All right, thank you. Dale, anything else?
Hold on.
Good.
Yeah, we'll need,
Yeah, well,
When
we're open.
when open,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
That's.
When
operating.
when operating.
yeah, so.
Okay,
Mhm.
all right.
And I'm assuming that they meet all the standards for the 80-20 standard for restaurants, for food service and alcohol and patron area versus work area, right?
Yeah, all of that's part of chapter 144,
Right,
which the
gotcha.
first condition says we're going to.
That's all that I have.
It's actually in there twice, I think.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Cook. Mr. Lyons?
Actually, I've asked all my questions so far, so I'm good.
All right, and ditto, everybody's answered all my questions. I really had a lot on the trash. All right, Jimmy O'Connor.
Questions have been answered. I'm good.
All right, Jimmy O'Connor's have all been answered, and that's it for the commissioners. Fred, do you have anything to add?
So about the plans that are submitted, just on the record, are you committing to these designations for patron area and exits and entrances and everything at this point in time? Yep.
Yes.
This is hard.
Yep.
I joke because we've gone through so many renditions. That I swear, why have to ask? Sometimes, but yes, we're good with all that stuff.
Condition on the fire.
True.
Fire marshal.
Mhm.
But I do have one other question to ask. Have you put it through the
Dave Lyons.
Department of Health, the plan review yet?
We'll be applying to them.
Okay, so you will be applying.
Oh, yeah.
I got it back. Yeah, I have one question. I know
That's
you're going to have
Jim
take out crabs here too. Is there going to be like a pass-through window where people can walk to the outside and you can just?
There's a small pass-through window exactly.
Yeah, I see it, but it just wasn't noted. I'm just
And
curious
there
if
was,
that's.
just to be honest, there was a concern about that from the neighbors. But the concern was the traffic, cars pulling up to get takeout, but eliminating the parking, which is our hope. You don't have that. It's just somebody walking up, think back door of Ed's.
No, I think it's a good idea. I was just curious.
Get
what's-
their dozen crabs to
Yeah.
their house. It's not a pull up. Looking
Not
for
like a
15-minute
drive-through.
parking.
It's a walk up and you get it. Yeah, that's fine. I was just curious.
All right, anything else from the planning and zoning commissioners as far as to ask the applicant about conditions that we might be talking about in a minute? If not, we'll go to the public. We have some folks in the audience. I don't know if any of them want to talk, but if I'm looking for anyone who wants to speak, stand up, come up, state your name and address, and say what you want to say.
And Kate, do we have people?
You have two.
Okay.
Okay. So seeing none here, then we will go to Kate's two in the waiting room, see if we can get them on.
The first one in.
Debbie, can you hear us, Debbie? Your microphone might be off. I don't hear you. Yeah, you're on mute. If you can unmute yourself, it looks like you're still on mute, Debbie.
Okay,
There you
I'm
go.
good.
All right.
Hi,
Name and address
everybody.
again.
Hi, my name is Debbie Robbins, and my husband and I own at the property at 22 Bellevue. So we're two houses from the restaurant on the same side of the restaurant. We occupy our home and do not rent. We are located, like I said, 2 lots away from the Pros Restaurant on the same side of the street. Let me begin by saying that we're supportive of Monty and Chris's efforts to transform the old Hammerhead site into a high-quality, family-friendly restaurant that they promise will be a positive addition to Dewey landscape. The Hammerhead's establishment sitting idle along with that pink house was not a good thing. a new establishment is. So this application promotes that goal. So the renderings look really, really nice, and we look forward to the restaurant. We want to reiterate just a few points that the applicant has agreed to. I've listened to you today, and I thank Monty and the entire commission about trying to change that parking situation in the front and across from Vander Wendy's, because it is a very dangerous situation. We're also possibly, and I was listening to this, we need benches possibly too for people waiting outside to get into the restaurant or waiting for their crabs. So there won't be people standing on the streets of Bellevue. And I just thought of that as maybe in the back where the parking is, maybe alongside the building, that there could be some sort of quick bench seating, allowing people to congregate so they're not congregating on the street. And Monty has agreed. He has worked unbelievably with all the neighbors, with myself and my husband, and everything about a community mailbox, about screening our property along with our neighbor's property, Julie, to make sure that we're comfortable with anything. And I feel confident, and my husband do, that they will keep an eye on the property. And if we have a problem, we know that we can go to Toasty and Monty, and we don't have to go to the town if there is a situation that arises with loitering or with people smoking too much outside or the trash. And I think as neighbors, we'll be able to deal directly with Monty and Toasty with any issues. So 22 Bellevue completely approves of everything within the plan.
Thank you, Debbie Robbins. We really appreciate that. It's nice meeting you, although virtually, and you got to love technology. It worked perfectly. Thank you, Kate.
So any questions for Ms. Robbins from this group?
I have none. I see none from all the planning and zoning commissioners. Thank you. All right, Kate, I guess we'll take the next one up. A few years from now, I think we're all going to be experts at this. It's really going well right now. You seem to be really smooth.
It seems to be working.
Kate's
very
driving well. Yep. Russo. I see, let's see, Michelle Rogers, I see her name up there. Is that RUSSO? RUSSO, I got it right. Okay.
I did jinx this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. No sooner I say it all works great, and then of course it doesn't work. You know, Murphy's Law. Michelle Rogers, my name is Mike Harmer. Can you hear us? Ooh, yeah.
Maybe a poll on right now.
In the room, it's just she's not.
Do you have to move, Paul? Do you think?
That's what I.
Let the next person. Right now.
Yeah.
All right. So Michelle's going to the waiting room, and now we're going to go to the next one. Would that be Commissioner Bauer?
No, I think Paul's just watching.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Who's that?
That was Paul.
No, Paul.
Yeah, I'm just
Hello,
listening.
Commissioner Bauer.
No comments at this point.
No comments. Thank you, sir. Nice seeing you.
Good to see you.
All right. All right. So Michelle's going to the waiting room, and now we're going to go to the next one. Would that be Commissioner Bauer? I know. I won't do that again.
Who's that?
No, Paul.
Yeah, hi, my name's Gary Carp, 21 Bellevue
Yeah, I'm
Street.
just listening.
Commissioner Bauer.
No comments at this point.
No comments. Thank you, sir. Nice seeing you.
Good to
So
see you.
he needs to-
YouTube.
Yeah, you need to turn the YouTube off, please. Or turn your mic speakers off. There we go.
All right, so we got Gary, how do you spell? Tarp, okay. Do we have, that's me.
He's hearing us delayed.
Because he has his speakers on, yeah.
Yeah, you need to turn the YouTube off. Or turn your mic speakers off. There we go.
All right, so we got Gary, how do you spell? That's me.
He's hearing us delayed.
Because he has his speakers on, yeah. Yeah, you need to turn the YouTube off.
So we got Gary,
Does Gary know that we're waiting for him to respond?
Gary, it's Mike Harmer. Can you go ahead and talk?
Sure.
And name your address?
Hi, Gary Carp, 21 Bellevue Street, unit number 4. Appreciate the opportunity to provide input. Sorry I couldn't be there today. First, I'd like to say that I continue being very supportive of the project and continue to be very impressed with the ownership and management team and look forward to the project progressing. I have some suggestions to be considered for additions and modifications to the proposed conditional use document. Many of these I think you've already covered. You've been doing a very thorough job. But before I go into those specifically, just to take a step back, I do have a concern that we're not looking at the project from a more comprehensive level and its overall impact to the town and to Bellevue Street. Obviously, the main contention is specifically how many car parking spaces should be provided, and maybe that's 0. And when I say the overall impact, I think we need to look at a full plan. That includes car parking, bike and scooter parking, pedestrian waiting area, car service, drop off, pickup area for takeout customers to have temporary parking when picking up orders. I think all of this needs to be considered when we look at the impact that this significant, size restaurant is going to have on the community. It looks like the approach being taken is to first get a parking exception and then later request from the town to get their 7 or 8 parking spaces at the corner of Bellevue and Coastal Highway to be repurposed into scooter and bike parking and possibly a location that benches would be provided. And I don't know how realistic it is that the town's going to give up 8 revenue producing parking spaces. The applicant continues to stress the need for bike and scooter parking, but there's no allowance for that currently in the plan. I think there's a worst case scenario with the current approach if a recommendation and decision is made to grant a parking exception and then later the request to repurpose the town's parking spaces is denied. I mean, if this happens, we could be left with kind of a mess. We'll have little to no car parking, no scooter bike parking. There's what in the drawings I see what appears to be a small area in the front of the restaurant for customers waiting, which may or may not be sufficient in size. No designated area for car services to drop off or pick up. No short-term parking for takeout customers. This could be quite a problem for Bellevue Street. So I really encourage this group to look at the project as a whole and not just focus on the car parking issue. So again, as you're having this discussion, where will customers drive or park when they're picking up orders? Where will car services park to drop off or pick up? Bellevue Street's a busy street. It's a narrow street. There's no sidewalks. I think these are some questions that that should be considered. So I have some specific suggestions. Kate, can you display the document that I sent you? And I think we can go through these quite quickly because most of these, I think.
I hope so.
So the first item, and this I think has been covered in quite a bit of detail, the trash receptacles, expanding the wording. I recommended a change. I cited some precedent in the slides that we're going to go through. And this was the wording that is shown there under recommended change was used in Ordinance 769 for playa bowls. This was recently approved. I do think this the wording makes sense. This is actually quite a sensitive area or issue for the residents of Bellevue Street, as we currently spend a good amount of time picking up trash from vendor.
Yeah, we've got that one covered already. We already talked about that. That'll be in there.
All right, number 2, smoking. I think you've addressed that. We would like to see that the outside service area, which borders the 24 Bellevue property, is clearly stated as smoking prohibited. And if there is benches provided or customer waiting area provided on Bellevue Street, that area is prohibited as well. Number 3, the fencing landscape.
Yep, we covered that.
I think that has been covered as well. Number 4 has been touched on, but I'd like to just spend a moment on that. I won't read the entire paragraph, but this excerpt was taken from Ordinance 752 from NALU and 750 Mama Maria's. And this specifically addresses the outdoor restaurant area. And this is something that's pretty important to Bellevue Street homeowners, as this section of the charter references outdoor seating terminating at 11 p.m.
Yes, I think we addressed that, but maybe not in detail, but Monty's already said that it'll close at 11.
But I do wonder that it is explicitly called out in these other conditional use documents. And maybe the attorney can help when you get into further discussion, whether or not that needs to be explicitly stated or not.
Okay, thank you.
So isn't the question for Jim real
Here's
quick,
a question.
if I could interrupt.
Go ahead, Fred.
I mean, isn't that a restatement of, that's a restatement of the existing code requirement that outside seating areas are closed at 11 o'clock, right?
I believe that is correct. And I guess my question is why, if it was that, why would it have been included in the other conditional use documents?
Well, we'll include it anyway. We're at least going to say it has to be closed at 11 because then it'll be clear in its conditions.
Yeah. Number 5, parking. Obviously, is referred to as the elephant in the room. I'd just like to make a few comments challenging this a bit. In the applicant's letter requesting a parking exception, they use Grotto's parking lot as rarely being full as a rationale for not needing parking. I think using Grotto's parking lot may be a bad example. Grotto's it's a pizza restaurant. It's a chain. Just in our general area, there's 3 Grotto's in Ocean City and 3 in Rehoboth, 2 in Bethany, 1 here in Dewey. It makes perfect sense that you wouldn't drive to Dewey to go to a Grotto's. I think a better example might be of parking usage might be the areas at Rusty Rudder, North Beach locations. And these lots seem to be consistently crowded. And even now in the off season, I see a good number of cars in the Rusty Rudder lot. In the previous meetings that we've had with this group, town commissioners, The applicant has used a term, a restaurant with an iconic flair. Earlier in the meeting, it was referred to as an upscale restaurant. And, I have a concern that this is the kind of restaurant that people are going to come from outside of town. And there's a good chance that they'll drive here and would need parking. I think it's Mr. Bauer that uses the expression unintended consequences. And is people driving to Dewey an unintended consequence because of this nice new restaurant? I think this needs to be considered. The applicant refers to square footage requirement for parking to be arduous, and I don't challenge that. I don't disagree. Even if you do use square footage, and even if you forgave the first 2,000 square feet and just calculated it based on the overage, they still need to provide 10 spaces. I'm not clear on how the recommendation or the request to provide 2 spaces came from, and just picking 2 because it fits on the property doesn't seem right. Just lastly, the rationale for needing parking. Look, the Dewey Charter is currently clear on the requirements. I have been surprised at these meetings that there's very little reference to the Dewey Comprehensive Plan. And the CDP clearly states that it's the document that is intended to serve as the policy guide for future development. And it is clear in the document that Dewey has parking challenges, and they're at least currently not being addressed. So I'm just concerned that we're adding to already known problems. Last item, number 6, Kate. We've talked a bit about bike and scooter parking. I think there should be, I'm recommending that there's some wording that gets added to the conditional use. And, I think I'm concerned that the approach is that the town needs to provide the space for park and bike, for scooter and bike parking. And, here's some suggested wording that if the town doesn't provide it, that the applicant would provide it. So final comment is just, look, it's a large restaurant. I think this is a big deal to the town. We need to take our time and get this right. And I really encourage this committee to discuss and consider some of these comments. I would like the document that we just reviewed to be part of the meeting, and Kate has an electronic copy. If it needs to be distributed, she can send it, or I'd be happy to distribute it. So that's all I have. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. You got any more, Kate? All right, thank you. That concludes the virtual public process, and we're going to close the public meeting. And now we're going to deliberate with the Planning and Zoning Commissioners on the actual conditions that we want to put on here. So, Fred, without any further ado, if you're okay, I will sort of pick up where I left off on the posted ordinance. Is that the process? Is that okay?
Well, are you making a motion?
Actually, no, let me back up. I think the process is where we make a motion, get a second to develop conditions.
Let's start with some dialogue, I would say. And then,
okay.
And then we'll move towards making a motion.
All right.
Let's
Anyone want to start, or you want me to start? How do you want to do it?
Let's ask the commission.
Jim, anything?
I don't have anything to add right now. No.
Mr. Cook?
Well, I think we need to start right off the bat before we vote, possibly even the motion, to say we accept the recommendation on the ordinance that's being put forth. I think we need to discuss eliminating or changing the reference to parking in there. Because
it needs
that's
change.
That's the job for the commissioner to either change the town code, or for the applicant to ask for a variance after being told that they could not get the building because they don't have the parking. One of the two. It's not our job. So we should start off by changing, either taking that out completely or changing the wording of it.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Cook. We'll hope to hear that in a motion as we move forward, because I think that's a great idea. Mr. Lon, or anything else, Mr. Cook?
No, I like the idea of sticking with the no smoking. I agree with the gentleman at last, and it was mentioned earlier about people a waiting area. That's not the applicant's job to provide a waiting area on the street. It's not the applicant's job to say what they're going to do about it, but it is our job to consider it and say, is there a way to solve that? And does the applicant voluntarily have a way to solve the waiting area or smoking or whatever in the street that would cause that's why we're here. Planning and zoning is supposed to put conditions that would help the neighborhood, not allow what was proposed to hinder the neighborhood. And I'm not saying this hinders it because I like what was proposed, but
Yeah, I think if you look at A003 underneath, or maybe it's over there by Jim, A03, it's not that one on top, the second one, Jim.
Oh, okay.
And show Dale the outside waiting area already designated on all the way to right there by Jim, right?
Yeah, you're on Route 1. Is that green area?
And does that go into the parking lot? I mean, is that into the sidewalk? Is that what that is there? I just-
The ramp, and it's where the current ramp is. Yeah, it currently exists, so.
That currently exists.
You know, hammerheads, you got that thing going up there.
I mean, my waiting area is parking lot.
Yeah.
You know, I
Right.
can't force somebody to, you know.
So, yeah, with the space they have, I think they address it on their architectural plan.
I think it's something the town should be concerned about, but I don't think we can force an applicant to control a public spot.
Agreed.
Okay? And again, one of my biggest worries was about noise abatement to the local area I think that's already been taken care of. So
So that was Dale Cook. Anything else there, Mr. Cook?
no, thank you.
All right, sir. Dave Lyons?
So I think we've addressed the highlighted ones, whatever we choose to do with the parking or in or out, whatever. I think that needs to be just considered. If it's not part of the scope, that's great. I like the idea of that waiting area. The only thing I would say is as we come up with these conditions, that they will be precedent setting, right? So I think we want to just keep that in mind. But when somebody else someday will come in here and want to sit down, they're going to want fairness. So I just think we need to be consistent in terms of what we present here going forward. That's my only comment.
All right, so I think we will be, Dave, consistent because, we sort of copying off some of the Dewey Beer Pub ones and improving upon those because it's continuous improvement in our conditions. So we're going to give it a good shot, and we might not get it perfect, but hopefully we do. And I have no other additional comments. Jimmy, no comments?
Additional comments either.
And none from Jimmy. Before we get a motion up here, Fred, do you want to say anything?
Just for the record, what we're setting aside the ordinance for a minute, what we're incorporating into a motion to approve is what is labeled A002, A003. And those are references to the footprint of the building. But the lot lines are shown. I've got a couple different plans here. And I want to make sure that the group knows which of them is proposed.
One that has dated 10/7/21 signed. Is that the same one?
So I've got one that's a preliminary site plan and one that's a boundary survey. Are they consistent with one another? And are they both meant to be conditions for your, okay.
Jimmy, here's the one we have. Okay. Missed that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you're saying the one that's dated, okay, so now there's a project number, there's not a drawing number on this, but it's the site plan that is
One's a preliminary site plan, the other is a boundary
It's got the
survey
same-
lot and
Oh, there you go.
consolidation.
Yeah.
But there's a signature and the seal with the date on the signature. They're all saying 10/7.
Yeah.
Looks like consistent across all these, the site plans, the boundary plans, and those footprints.
So I guess in your motion, just mention the 4 plans that we're putting in front of us, and name them, the preliminary site plan, the boundary survey, and A002 and A003, Fred, and you've got those numbers anyway, you can write the ordinance or draft up the ordinance. All right, perfect. That's what they're proposing. You're gonna try change it. So we have a question on the site plan. The one that was up originally, it's this one here. It's upside down. It's that one. So the parking was shown on the top of the drawing on Bellevue Street. So what's going to change? Like we see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The numbers circled. Can somebody explain what those are and what's gonna, how that's gonna work?
Aren't they just the numbered parking spaces? Is that what you're looking at?
Yeah. But are they gonna provide those? Is that what's being said? Those are provided?
Those are what,
Those are town.
the first 6 are town,
Okay, first-
spots.
okay.
The additional 2 we propose to add because we have the new residential property there that we're incorporating. But again, if, depending on how our parking application goes for off-street parking, I mean, these are in town areas, so they're not going to be affected. It
Okay.
is our hope that eventually those spaces will be converted into other uses. But
But that's just a excuse me, Dale Cook, that's just a suggestion
that's
from
right.
you.
We
That's town
we
parking.
can't tell you what to do on your town parking. That's
Right.
right. That's right.
Okay.
These 1, 2, and 3 are currently town.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Bill Zolper,
Yeah,
town
Bill.
manager. We plan on making those bicycle and moped unless something else comes up because
Okay.
of safety concerns that has already been discussed here on the corner.
Thank you, Bill Zolfer. Appreciate that. All right. So Jimmy, you're good? At this point, I think we're looking for a motion from one of the planning and zoning commissioners and then a second. And the motion would say something like, we're going to list the conditions during the discussion piece. Is that how we do it? Or do they make the motion with the conditions?
We would typically, unless we could refer to them, because they were already before us, you would typically have to incorporate them into the motion so people know what they're voting on. So
Okay.
we can try and help.
Try to. Go ahead. You can look at my notes if you want. Let me explain to Dave. I don't know it's appropriate for me to make the motion, but the motion, Dave might, if Dave, you're going to make one, might say the ordinance up through 7, 8, and then I can, my code language here is the ones that have checks on it or the ones that we kind of talked about that were good. So, and I can help you through some of my writing here because there's an X on that. We want to keep that. We want to keep that. So this would be X. This would be a good one. X. Gonna be using this. See how I marked that out? That would be a check. That means we're going to use that I had X'd out before, but we're going to not use what's scratched out because that's what we talked about. That's my code language.
Going to use that, right?
Yeah, you know what I mean? So, all right, why don't you try, take a shot?
Mr. Chair, may I suggest too, I know he's going to read out of frame, but once we get even the motion and seconded, then we can discuss, right?
Okay, right.
And then,
Absolutely.
and then in that discussion, we need to come down to final wording of each item because I think I'm at a loss. I wouldn't want to try to discern that right now. I'm at a loss to what the final wording was.
Well, I think Dave will take a shot at it and then second, we can have a discussion, like
Thank
you
you,
said.
sir. Thank you.
Go from there.
Okay. So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to amend the current ordinance before the committee today to include, I'm going to give you some numbers that I'm going to reference items from ordinance 712 first. And then there are two additional that I think we've covered, but I want to just make sure we get them as well. So from ordinance 712, I'm going to suggest that we include under A1, which is the definition of the restaurant. A2, which is just references how the restaurant will operate. A8, which references tables and chairs to be maintained in a fixed position or a fixed configuration. A10, which describes how kitchen facilities will be operated under a direction of chef or a cook. A14, which describes exterior windows and doors shall be closed at 11 p.m. A15 describes interior speakers shall not be pointed outside or only towards the interior space. A16 describes the normal hours of, A16 describes trash removal, which the change here is that we will, all trash will be removed before 10 a.m. and the reference to Salisbury Street should be replaced with Bellevue Street. A17 references how alcohol should be served or what no additional promoting, insurance provided in a safe and responsive manner. Moving on, under section B.
Hours of operation. I think we were gonna. I think we scratch all those and we're gonna get to operations here.
Okay,
Hours of
yeah,
operation.
okay. So I'm gonna bypass the one I was referring to was B18, but we're gonna address that later. We're gonna, I suggest we include B22, which describes the fence.
Dave, the hours we're addressing. Just so.
Okay,
So the motion would be to impose a requirement that a fence be erected.
that's correct.
Okay.
Fence and planting, right?
Yes.
That's later on. Yep. Down.
Oh, okay.
What was here is the applicant shall erect, unless there's an existing fenceless location, and maintain a fence along the east edge of the property to buffer impacts on abutting residential properties.
And the landscape.
So there's a height referenced, isn't there in the?
So
In the next.
oh, and I believe it's the next one, right? A23.
So do we, as far as the fence is concerned, do we wish it to be a minimum height?
Minimum of 6 feet.
I'm going to suggest a minimum of 6 feet high.
Okay. All right.
That's what it said.
That's what's in there. And then we'll suggest the incorporation of B23, which is plantings, refers to plantings being installed and maintained along the east boundary of the property to protect the neighbor's privacy and protects the properties from light and noise resulting from the applicant's operations. I'm going to suggest we add a B24, which refers to exhaust outlets. B25, which is maintained lighting.
Residential
Structure. Yeah, the change there is any residential structure. Thank you.
Or dwelling, maybe.
Dwelling. I'm going to recommend the word dwelling. And then B25, which the applicant shall provide lighting and provide and maintain lighting in the parking area during normal hours of operation. Yeah, we'll take that one out. We'll recommend the inclusion of B27, excuse me, which refers to exterior mechanical equipment being fenced or shielded off from being visible. And then
That was all.
this, I don't think we need to include that. That's part of the steering code.
Yeah, it's all Brew.
That's all Brew. Yeah. Okay. And then two additionals, I believe we talked about as a group, which would be additions. would be no smoking shall be permitted in the deck area. And that a separate outside smoking area be designated. All right. So just no smoking will be permitted in the deck area. And lastly, we want to add another, which is that we will meet all conditions set forth in the town code. That trash pickup will be performed on a minimum of 5 days a week when operating.
While operating.
While operating. And I believe we covered it, but I'll just say outside area will close at 11 p.m. With last seating of, we can cover that. So we'll just say it's going to close at 11 p.m. That would be my suggested items.
That's a motion. Need a second?
I would second it.
I'll second. Oh, go ahead, Jim.
Jimmy beat you to it. Jimmy O'Connor with the second. Let me write that
Did you
down
want
somewhere.
to qualify your second? Is that what you were saying?
No.
Okay.
I'm not going to repeat it.
So now we're in discussion.
So I think it's what's inherent in the motion is that the motion is contingent upon resolution of the parking issue. The motion is going to be to recommend approval to the commissioners. It's contingent upon resolution of the parking issue and compliance with whatever parking standards are ultimately required of the applicant. That the approval is incorporating the drawings that we have referenced so that what we're recommending approval is what is depicted in these drawings. I don't know what else.
Is the suggested ordinance part of what's now recommended forwarded to the commissioner?
Absolutely.
Well, then that has to be changed, right? That is changed by this.
The motion is to work from the proposed ordinance, which had just 9
Gotcha.
considerations. And actually, remember, we're amending an existing conditional use, and that was part that we may pare down. I mean, the commissioners may choose to pare down the motion a little bit or the ordinance a little bit, because what we were working from was establishing a then non-existing brew pub. And it's got some language in it that applies to them because they were non-existing, whereas Hammerheads exists and we should be working from their existing ordinance. So I'm just flagging that as a potential issue going forward. Go ahead.
Thank you, Fred. It's Mike Harmer. So the way I think we've allowed to do this in the past is that Fred will draft up what we talked about in the motion if we pass it. And then I will get a chance to review it. Not 3 of us are allowed, but 2 are. And Dale, if you would take that honor, do you want to, or I could send it to Dave or Dale or whoever, but we can't have 3 of us. We're not allowed because of Public Information Act. So Fred, if the process will be, based on what the motion is, if it passes, then Fred will wordsmith it, send it to me. I will review it, compare it to my notes, and I'll send it to one other commissioner to have them compare it. I was not going to offer it to Dale, but I'll tell you what, Dale, if you trust Dave, if you're okay with it.
I trust you all.
Since it was his motion. All right. So we can't do it all. And then he would check it, might check me, and then we'll give Fred the okay quickly and get that. Then Fred would get that to town hall. And that's the process we've used in the past. And then the applicant, the next time you'll see it is when it's posted or when the commissioners talk about it at their next meeting. And that's where we're at. So we're looking for a vote on that. And we'll start with Jim Balicki.
Aye.
Dale Cook.
Yeah, are we supposed to give our reasonings also?
Yeah, I mean, now would be the appropriate time to provide support for your recommendation.
All right, want to go back to Jim? Do you want to say anything in addition or?
No, I don't have anything to add.
Okay,
I'm good with wage written.
okay.
I just am really pleased the way the commissioners have delved into this and what they've done. I think they've covered almost every item. I do have some comments that I'll make when it gets to commissioner comments, but
All right.
I think this has been handled very well and I vote aye.
All right, thank you, Dale. And Dave Lyons?
I'm going to vote aye, and just kind of do a shout out to mine here because, something like this brings everybody's ire up in the neighborhood. You certainly have done everything you can to kind of address everybody's concerns and interests. So just want to say thank you.
All right, and I'm going to vote yes also. I think it's an improvement for the town, and I think that the issues that we heard today, that the residents and the public comments, many of them are being addressed as best as possible, practically possible on this property. And that's all I'll say. Jimmy?
Jimmy will vote yes.
All right.
Looking forward to the improvements as well.
All right. So that's a unanimous yes, and we will work quickly on this. I will coordinate with Fred and Dave and get this to Town Hall ASAP. Thank you all for attending. Now, what we're going to do, we're not going to end yet. We're going to have commissioners' comments at this point because that's what the agenda says. So, Jim, do you have any comments?
No further comments.
Mr. Cook?
Yeah, unfortunately, I do. I apologize.
It's all right. We're good, man.
Conditional use application. The application said it will be put in with a check for $750. Did we change that to $500? Because the check that was put in was a $500 check. I think we. I don't know.
There's Jim Deeds is waving his hand from Town Hall.
You're correct. It's $500. $750 because of board adjustment.
Right. I thought it had been changed, but the application still says 750.
All right. So it's 500.
Second thing is, wait a minute, folks. The second thing is, what we do does set a precedent. It absolutely does. People look back and say, you gave it to them. What possible reason could you not give whatever it is to me? So they do set precedents, and I'm suggesting what has been suggested before for you guys and for the town to get a permanent list of general ideas for conditional uses. And then you could add to and subtract. Right now, we're winging it. We're reading off of paper, and we need to get a permanent listing. And I'm suggesting that the town building official and the chairman of the committee or designates get together and come up with a temporary permanent list that we could vote on in the future, so we don't start off. Seems like we're reinventing the wheel every time we get another request.
Thank you, Dale.
I had two other things, but the posting of the background documents. This has been something that I've had a problem with when I was mayor and when I was commissioner, and now when I'm commissioner here. We still had background documents being posted today or yesterday, I can't remember which, but there's got to be a cutoff time so the public can see all the background documents. I mean, we had documents that were still being posted, and one in particular was a letter from the applicant to the Board of Adjustments, was posted in background documents for planning and zoning. And it tends to sway people back and forth. So that shouldn't have been done. We need to watch how we post background documents. And I think that all background documents ought to be in a few days before, or, because if we don't, the public doesn't get the chance to read them. That's all I have.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Cook. Dave Lyons, any comments?
No more further comments.
I have none. Jimmy?
I have none as well.
All right. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
No, wait, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn. So why don't you make the motion?